Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review of This Is Us Season 6, Episode 13. The day of the wedding is finally here. This is a time for romance. This is a time for wine tasting. This is a time to also feel very sad and concerned.
It's also a time for an Agatha Christie mystery. Who was in Kevin's room?
This. Who knew we were going to get so much mileage out of this? It's like this is us writers. They really just put this together for us so we can come on here and do our own who was it investigation. No, but there's a lot to talk about in this episode. I think it's a really big culmination of a lot of different stuff. Just some really, really beautiful moments.
Yeah.
Of course, though, before we go further, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because we know there's a lot of big stuff still to come on this show. We'll have a preview for what's coming next later this week. We don't want you guys to miss any of that or our coverage of the Better Call Saul premiere that aired on Monday night.
Oh, yeah.
That was really, really fun, and we're going to be discussing the Snowfall finale tomorrow. So very busy time here at the channel.
Also, follow us over on Instagram at Matt and Jess TV. I got a new bunny this weekend, and we have pictures up over there of Miss Fifi Fontaine, so you can go over there and check that out. Now, before we get too far into the review, I want to just put out a reminder to everyone that we have only watched the episode.
Yeah.
We do not watch the preview. So if there is something that is in the preview, there's no need to come into the comments and be like, hey, this happened in the preview, because we're doing this specifically this way so that we can give you guys the more authentic reaction to just the episode. So just a reminder out there.
There's certainly plenty to discuss in this episode alone. Like you've already brought up the Agatha Christie mystery. I just feel like we're both probably chomping at the bit the most to get into the Kevin situation here because there is a lot, to say the least.
Yeah, there is. Okay, so we had Madison and Beth go into Kevin's room because she needed to get some sort of, it was time to like feed the twins or get something together for them. And she goes into the room and she's been in the room before and a bunch. Her makeup is in the room because they share foundation or something like that. So Kevin obviously knows that she's just gonna be in the room. So they go into the room, they find a couple of clues. So they find this napkin that's got either poetry or song lyrics on it. I personally think there's three possibilities of who it is. It's either Cassidy, it's Sophie, or it's the wedding singer. And I think that napkin has to do with the wedding singer. Do I think she was in the room? I don't, but we'll get into that. Then we see that there's like a floral wrap. We've learned later that is Cassidy's. So she was in the room. And there was also like a slip and some undergarments to where I was just like, who leaves their undergarments in the room and just dresses and leaves? And I'm not saying people don't do that. So like if you're a person out there that's done that, where you've been at someone's house and you leave your undergarments there and just run out wearing, I don't know what you're wearing, nothing, just the dress. I don't know. It happens, but like it's not that normal to not dress yourself in the clothes you wore and then go leave afterwards. So when I saw that was my first thought, where I was kind of like, how did this happen? How did the woman who took off her clothes not remember to put them all back on again when she left in the morning?
If nothing else, it's clearly evidence that whoever this is, they got to be going back to Kevin's room at some point to retrieve their belongings. And so I'm guessing this probably means that there's a pretty decent time in there, because otherwise you probably wouldn't be leaving your stuff. I don't know. The other takeaway I had, though, was that Madison, I know we mentioned this in the preview, but why are you taking pictures of the undergarment? Are you going to be like wandering around and being like, I need to find the matching undergarments to these photos that I took?
Yeah, my biggest kind of question is, and I know it's because they wanted to have the mystery, obviously, in this episode, but if this was real life, why didn't Madison just ask Kevin and be like, hey, I just went in, like I said, to go take care of the twins because the stuff was in your room. And I found this in your room. Anything you want to tell me about? They're adults and they have a really good relationship. They've talked about pretty much anything. So is that not something to just be like, hey, what is this?
I think especially because they do have children together, I think that does afford them to have that sort of discussion, because if Kevin is with somebody, then inevitably that somebody could be eventually around the kids, and there are discussions to be had there that are important. Like, and I would hope Madison would get there eventually, depending on how all this goes. I don't, for whatever reason, and maybe she's just bored on the wedding day waiting for things to get underway. I think she was really all about this. All right, Beth, let's do this. Let's figure this out. They were really fun together, by the way, these two.
Yeah, they were. And I appreciate that Beth actually asked Madison, are you okay doing this?
Yeah.
Because you have a history with him. I know you're married and moved on. And she's like, yeah, I'm married. I have a 9-month-old. I've moved on. I'm ready to do this sort of thing. I was like, okay. To me, that's kind of closing the book here. Uh-oh.
I know. I think we have moved now to the
Yeah.
acceptance phase of the Madison and Kevin pairing probably not going to happen.
Okay, so who is it?
All right.
And what is my theory? Okay, so near the end of this episode, we saw Randall go up to Kevin and be like, hey, how was your night last night? And Kevin had this look on his face like it wasn't that great, that there was something that he felt a little melancholy about, that maybe there was, I don't know. So anyways, we saw there was still kind of dusk out where he was walking with Sophie and talking. It looked like in the vineyard. So he obviously had some sort of talk with her. And we saw throughout this episode him looking at her. There was an awkward exchange. And then we saw a little bit later, he's sitting at what looks like a bar with the wedding singer, which at first I was like, he's sitting at a bar. Why would he be sitting at a bar? He's sober. Maybe he's just having a Coke. Then we saw at the very end, Cassidy going into his room. And we already know that she was in his room because she was like, I left my floral wrap in your room. So this is where I'm kind of at with it. I actually think that he slept with no one, is what I actually think has happened. So what I think happened is he ended up having a really deep talk with Sophie. Sophie is still married, allegedly. That's what it sounds like. The husband's not there. She is still wearing a wedding ring, but the husband not being there, I was kind of like, okay, maybe it's not doing that well. So maybe the talk they had was along those lines, which is like, yeah, things are not well, whatever. There's still a connection here, whatever. Then he goes to the bar. Now, there's either a situation where he has broken his sobriety at the bar, or he's having a Coke. And then here comes the wedding singer who writes down on the napkin these lyrics and gives it to him. That's how I think he gets those lyrics. Whatever happens between them at that bar, it was enough that later the wedding singer was like, hey, can I talk to you? So maybe she said something that kind of triggered him or made him feel some sort of way, that he was like, okay, I got to get out of here. And he was feeling some sort of way. And he was like, hey, I need somebody right now. Cassidy, can you come to the room with me? I'm feeling a certain way. Maybe I'm feeling like I might break my sobriety. I need to have a sober buddy with me. And Cassidy was like, I got you. I will be here all night with you. That's why the undergarments were there, that she would be like, I'm going to ride the couch for the night. I got you. That's what I think happened.
I think it's a good theory, and I think it makes sense in sort of charting a lot of these different stories. Like, I'll admit, I have gone through a little bit of a journey myself trying to figure this out, because originally I sort of wondered, is this a situation where Kevin has feelings for multiple women and he's trying to figure out a choice? But then I was like, okay, this is not going to be the end of a season of The Bachelor. I don't think that is exactly what is happening, where there are multiple women throwing themselves at Kevin. I don't think that is the case. What I do think is the case here is that conversation with Sophie, he got something out of it, whether it is, like you said, okay, my marriage isn't doing that great. Maybe that causes Kevin to think about his own future with her and goes down that road. I think the wedding singer conversation maybe just gives him a little bit of an outside perspective on things and sort of where he is and what he wants out of love. I mean, the actress playing that wedding singer, Katie Lowe's, like, she was on Scandal for years. This is a pretty big name guest star. So this is not like she's a nothing burger moving forward. But this is where I'm going to get to what is now my theory, judging from the fact how terribly wrong I was about the Madison and Kevin being together part of this.
That's
We'll
okay.
see where we
It's
go.
all just fun. That's the
All
whole
right.
point. We get to all just say our theories, right or wrong. It doesn't matter. We're just having fun.
Cassidy and Kevin are going to be together. And
Oh,
this is okay, so
boom.
here is how
Here we go.
here is how I think this is happening.
Here we
I
go.
think that the conversation with Kevin and Sophie and then Kevin and the wedding singer, I think they gave him a very specific perspective on what it is and what he's looking for. And I think he probably had Cassidy there, not so much as like a hey, let's hook up sort of thing, but more so as a just the chance to really talk because they're really close friends at this point. And I think those feelings that he sort of expressed with her in the past, I think those have been there for him on some level. But I think through all of this and having her there as his plus one, I think it's probably manifesting all these feelings. But I think where he may really be struggling is that door may not still be open on Cassidy's part, and he doesn't know what to do about that because it's a really just tormenting situation to have feelings for somebody and you don't know if it's ever going to be accessible. And I think for Kevin, a guy who has really been with all sorts of people over the years and probably isn't in a position where feelings aren't reciprocated all that often because, you know, he's a big guy, he's a big star, good looking guy. He's probably had a lot of success there romantically. I think it is a big challenge for him. So that is where I am staking my flag right now. We will see what happens. I'm going to hide myself now.
Well, I think that it's ending up with Sophie. I think that this show loves a full circle moment, whether it works or not. And I think that it can. I just think that I've said this many, many times. I still stand on this hill that if he's going to end up with Sophie, he has to really earn it. And I know that she has said, you know, the person who gets this ring has to really earn it, but he really does. He's done her really dirty over the years. He's come back to her a lot of times when he needs something, and it's not really about her or her and him. It's really just about him. He's in a different spot right now. And I know that there's been a little bit of back and forth in the fandom about the idea that he's been back womanizing. And I don't think he's necessary for me. I don't think he's womanizing. I think he's trying to find somebody, that he's trying to find the one for him, that now that he feels good about himself, who's the one for him. I think that seeing Sophie, he did, you know, the whole Princess Bride thing for his sister, but clearly he's saying it for Sophie as well. She's the only one in there that's like, ha 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 kind of thing. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I think that everything from the past is flooding back. I think he's a different man now. And after that talk, it's going to put him in a different headspace. I do think that because the show loves the full circle moment, he will end up with Sophie.
Watch him end up with the wedding singer, and it's like the person who was right for him all along is the person we did not care about whatsoever until tonight's episode.
I only care about Kevin, so whoever he ends up with, I think Sophie is a great choice. She's always been. Madison, for me, great choice. Cassidy, she's a really good choice. They have such a strong foundation of friendship and have a real understanding of their sobriety together and a lot of what they've gone through together. Great choice as well. I mean, there's some good options out there for him.
All right, so now we go from mystery to just sadness and emotion as we talk about what is going on with Rebecca and how it is clearly impacting Miguel in a pretty serious way.
My poor Miguel.
I know.
Oh
I
my
know.
God.
It is rough.
It was rough. So we saw that for the most part, he is handling things the best that he can. He knows that, you know, Rebecca's memory is going, that since they've been at the wedding, because there is a big change and it is difficult for people going through Alzheimer's or dementia to have big changes like that. It can make shifts in memory and stuff like that. So she does think that Kevin is Jack, and she is seeing Jack, and Kevin's just rolling with the punches. Because Randall did not, which is, you know, not always the right way to go about it. You don't want to just keep reminding somebody who can't remember this and hold on to that memory where they're going to get hurt over and over and over again. This happened with my grandmother too, where she was like, where is Compton? That's my grandfather's name. Where is Compton? Where is Compton? After he passed away. And, if we were to just keep reminding her, oh, he's passed away, we're going to break her heart 100 times a day. It was more of a kindness to say, oh, he'll be back soon. He's at the store. Don't worry. Hey, distraction. Let's move into something else. And then she was able to move into something else. And I'm glad that the show did show that is, one of the ways to go with this.
I think it's important to show how everyone is sort of handling it as well, and because not everybody is going to have the same perspective. And I think with Randall in particular, I guess I should say with Senator Randall in particular, I think, number one, he's been off doing senator things. So, he's probably not in a position where he gets to spend as much time with Rebecca as he'd like. But I think so much of Randall's DNA is, I can fix this. And I think if you are a senator, especially, you probably every single day, you're like, I'm a problem solver, but this is a problem that can't be solved.
Yeah, and Randall is a person who really values honesty. So
Yeah.
I think for him, the idea of not just telling Rebecca the truth and being like, hey, don't you remember Jack is dead? That sort of thing, that I think struggling with lying is something that's just, it's going to be hard for him, where it's not lying. It is a kindness. You don't want to put Rebecca through that grief multiple times a day over and over and over again and just hurt her like that. It doesn't help her.
No, and I don't know if he's at a place where he realizes that yet. And he's clearly not at a place where he realizes what Miguel actually needs, and that is Randall not swooping in and trying to be, micromanager / I'm gonna be the hero all the time, Randall. Like, sometimes people don't need that from you, Randall. I'm sorry, I love you, but just saying.
No, and I'm glad that we didn't get to the point where I was actually very worried going into this episode that she was going to know who Miguel is, but just remember him as Jack's best friend. And that was the time. And that hasn't happened completely. She was going sort of in and out of thinking that Kevin is Jack, which is, a popular theory of 5 more years in the future when we are at Rebecca's deathbed, that he is wearing his wedding ring because she thinks he's Jack, and he is doing the kindness to be like, yes, this is where we are. And that's very possible.
Yeah, that's absolutely possible. And I would not be surprised if we go in that direction at all. I think really at this point, it's about trying to figure out the best way to care for Rebecca, no matter what that is. And I think Miguel, he's trying his best, and I just think in everybody focusing so much attention on Rebecca, and understandably so, nobody's giving attention to Miguel. I mean, Rebecca can't at this point.
And here's the thing. I mean, we got to remember here, we only have a 5-year timeline in between this wedding and Rebecca's deathbed. And Miguel is not in the future yet.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that he dies within these 5 years. We saw that Randall was like, oh, I saw some medication you're taking for your blood pressure. That doesn't necessarily, that's not a death sentence.
No.
So, it could just be that. Or is there something else going on? Like 5 years is a very short amount of time for him to go from I'm on blood pressure medicine to I'm gone. So is that the possibility that that's happened? Is he dead? Or is it that Rebecca's just having such a hard time because she can't remember Miguel at all, that maybe Miguel also had to do her a kindness and had to move into the guest spot?
I think that's still possible. Like I'm trying to prepare myself for the worst, and that is the idea that Miguel is dead, just because everybody else in the future has been shown to be alive at this point.
They said 2 deaths.
And I just feel like we're going to be losing somebody else. And I think, I don't necessarily... The medication is not just like the ultimate, death sentence here by any means, but I do think it's a little bit of foreshadowing that we've been casting so much attention on Rebecca we haven't been casting it on Miguel, and it's very well possible something bad is going to happen to him first.
Also, can we just give a shout out to Mandy Moore and that beautiful performance in this episode with her singing and that moment at the wedding? And it was so wonderful. And I'm really glad that Rebecca had that win.
That was, I think, the culmination of Rebecca's entire story on this show. There was so much wrapped in to that performance, and even the music cues. I mean, like we just kind of alluded to earlier. I mean, we're watching this early. We have a screener for it, so I don't know what other people are saying online as I'm saying this, but it felt to me like the score of that song that she was singing has been woven in throughout the entire show. I want to know how long this was sort of planned, because I feel like Dan Fogelman is someone who, he obviously wrote things out very far in advance. And if he was just thinking so carefully of, I want every note that you hear on this show to be tied to what you're going to hear from Rebecca at sort of the very end, because this may be the last, like, truly powerful moment of Rebecca being Rebecca just like that. And I hate saying it, but I kind of feel like that's where this is going.
Well, yeah, I mean, when we go back to the past, beep, bop, boop. So we're back in the
Yes.
past here now. We saw that with Rebecca not wanting to be, hey, pound of ham, that
Yeah.
she really wanted to not lose herself in getting that Princess Diana haircut that
Yeah.
everybody at that time. But that's the sort of thing where it was like she doesn't want to lose herself. And it very well may be the last time that we see her that way. And speaking of seeing or not seeing people, we saw people in the comments asking where Randall's kids were in that promo.
Yeah.
And lots of theories that maybe they were at college and they couldn't make it down or whatever. It seems like they're there because Kevin makes a comment about Senator Randall not having security and him saying that Annie is there to protect him. I think it's just we just didn't see them.
Yeah, and from like a television standpoint, I think it's important to remember a couple of different things here. Like, first and foremost, the time jumps make it very difficult to bring in new people, like, because you can't put like older age makeup on a kid, and
hard,
and then there's also the perspective of, okay, well, you also have only so much money per episode and only so much time. This is not like a Better Call Saul where you can just run it however long you want to and the network's gonna be like okay. And because we already have several big names in this episode. Alexander Breckenridge is back, Jennifer Morrison, Katie Lowe's, that probably didn't have enough money to then put in every other person that you would inevitably want to see in this episode. I think this is just sort of the way of things.
Yeah, I think money was probably part of it. I think exactly what you said. It is very hard to age up kids 5 years, especially when they're younger, because we know, like, you go through puberty and all of a sudden, you're a beanstalk and you're 6 feet tall and everything has changed, right?
Yeah. Like, I think the most important thing to remember here is that obviously all of Randall's kids have a role to play in the future. Like, we've seen that already with Deja. We've seen some stuff with Tess. We still don't know what's going to happen with Malik, but we can all still have a little bit of hope with that.
Yes.
The funniest thing of all here is that we are 23 minutes into this video, and we have not even really talked about Kate and Phillip, the people who are actually getting married in this episode.
I think it's just everything really went beautifully for them. And I think that's what maybe we all expected to happen. It was it was beautiful. It was a beautiful exchange of vows. There's lots of love there. I feel the good connection with them. I'm all right with it now. Like, it makes sense.
It does. It makes sense that we had this moment now. They had their love story. Kate is happy. That's the biggest thing I think we've all wanted for her for so long. And I think the big point of this episode in a lot of ways is that, yes, this event is a huge celebration of Kate and Phillip, but it's not like time stops for everybody else while this is going on. Weddings are very stressful. There are a lot of components, a lot of moving parts, and I think everybody is doing their best to try to handle this their own way. And, somebody like Miguel just wants a chance to be, normal, I guess, and different from himself for a little while.
Oh my goodness. That fight with Randall, not fight, but just him just needing to go away, just
Yeah.
to have an hour to feel normal, to not think about his blood pressure medication or think about what's going on with Rebecca, to just be like, Randall, you're the only other person that enjoys a good glass
Yeah.
of wine like me. I just wanted to think about that. Like, couldn't you have just given me that?
Miguel, I enjoy a good glass of wine. Granted, I will not be able to tell you any of the tasting notes or any of your other fancy schmancy stuff. If Randall can't help you out, though, here you go. Here you go. No, I this episode was so good. It was emotional, heartfelt. Like, I think we have all of our questions, but there's not a lot I really have to complain about here, which is that's always good for an episode like this.
No, it was great. Like I said, my only complaint is who leaves their clothing and walks out of the hotel room. Like, if you're not staying in that room, you need those clothes to go back to where you're going. So why?
Why are you taking the pictures, Madison? Okay,
Okay,
that
is weird.
That is my complaint. Okay, well, hit that subscribe button. We will be here to preview what is coming up next. It feels like this upcoming episode is going to be a lot about Kevin and a lot about getting some answers on him. Yeah. Follow us on Instagram at Matt and Jess TV. Why would you not do that? There is a bunny there. Thank you, guys. We will see you here next time.